Hi, I'm Millie. My sister smiled as she handed me a glass at my own pregnancy reveal, and I drank it. They said I was emotional, overreacting. Pregnancy brain, my brother joked. But what if I told you? I caught her on camera, pouring something into my drink, right before the toast. Why would your own family try to hurt you and still expect you to stay silent? Let me show you what they did, and why that night was only the beginning. They all came. Somehow, they always do. I watched through the sheer curtain as the first car pulled into the driveway, Everly's silver SUV. Of course, she was early. She always made sure to be first, just to assert control. My hand tightened around the edge of the windowsill, nails digging into the wood, but I smiled. I had to. Inside, everything was perfect, or at least it looked like it. The table was set with lemon-themed decorations, the kind you see on Pinterest boards titled Subtle Southern Charm. I'd spent 2 weeks planning it all. My back still ached from arranging folding chairs and baking that cursed lemon cake. I kept telling myself it was worth it. For the baby. For this moment. Mom walked in next, commenting on how tight the house felt. "Must be the paint color," she said. I swallowed the sting and nodded. My brother-in-law trailed behind Everly like he always did, muttering something about the game he was missing. Classic. The house buzzed with voices and the scent of citrus and sugar. And yet, under it all, I felt it again, that cold little draft of doubt. It had been creeping in for weeks. A look here, a too long silence there. Everly's laugh that didn't quite match her eyes, and the whispers I'd caught. I started to think. Maybe I wasn't imagining things. Earlier that morning, before anyone arrived, I unscrewed the base of the cake stand and slid in a tiny black camera. It pointed directly at the drinks table. If someone had asked me why, I don't think I could have answered clearly. It wasn't logic, it was instinct. People always say paranoia is irrational. Until it's not. Maybe it was the time I found my supplements switched, or the odd emails that disappeared, or the way Everly always offered to help, but only when it mattered most, and only in ways that left me on edge. When it was time for the toast, everyone gathered in the living room. I raised my glass, heart pounding louder than my voice. "I have something to share." They leaned in. "I'm pregnant." A beat of silence, then applause, forced laughter, hugs. But I noticed Everly's smile didn't reach her eyes. It was too wide, too calm. She stepped forward, pressed a glass of lemonade into my hand. "With extra ice, just how you like it." It tasted off. Not wrong enough to panic, but bitter, metallic maybe. I let it rest against my lips, gave a fake sip, then lowered it. Nobody noticed, or maybe they pretended not to. Everly laughed too loudly at my mom's joke about finally doing something right. My brother-in-law checked his phone. Everyone acted normal, too normal. I stood there, holding that glass, and felt like the room had shifted sideways. A memory flashed. My 10th birthday, the chocolate cake I never got because Everly accidentally dropped it. And how no one believed me. Excusing myself, I walked to the bathroom. My stomach rolled, not from nausea, but from a deeper, older sickness. I closed the door, spat the lemonade into the sink, and stared at my reflection. What if I hadn't stopped? What if I'd trusted that fake smile, just like always? Back in the hallway, I watched them through the mirror, their backs turned, drinks in hand, laughter echoing like it belonged to strangers. That mirror. It felt like a barrier now. I was no longer one of them. I thought about the life growing inside me, about the kind of family I wanted this child to know. Not this. I wiped my face, stood straighter, and whispered, "No more." Later that night, the house was silent. Everyone had left, their perfume and half-eaten cake the only traces. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and plugged in the camera. The footage loaded. I fast-forwarded through the early bits, Everly arranging cups, pouring lemonade, stirring. And then, she reached into her purse, pulled out a small brown bottle, and tipped it carefully into one of the glasses. My glass. I didn't breathe. On the screen, Everly looked up, smiled, walked away. My voice, low and certain, played in my head. Turns out, I wasn't paranoid. I was right. I didn't sleep. I sat in bed, the laptop open in front of me, screen casting a pale light across the room. The image was paused right on her face, Everly's smile, sweet and effortless, while her hand tipped that tiny brown bottle into my lemonade. I hit play again, watched her scan the room, then stir the glass with a straw like nothing happened. It wasn't the act itself that burned, it was how casual it was. No hesitation, no guilt, like brushing lint off a sleeve. I whispered out loud, "You really did it." I watched the footage on loop, trying to find something, anything that would make it less real. But it never changed. She did it. She smiled while doing it, and that smile, that's what kept me awake. I'd seen it all my life, that same perfect curve of lips that won her sympathy, trust, applause. And I had to decide, call her out now, or wait and gather more. Morning crept in slow. I hadn't even changed out of my clothes from the night before when the doorbell rang. I checked the peephole, Everly. I opened the door halfway. She stood there beaming, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and a tray of muffins. "Surprise, Mama-to-be!" Her voice, all honey and light, made my stomach twist. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked straight to the kitchen like she owned it. "I thought you could use a little pick-me-up." I watched her closely. The tilt of her head, the brightness in her eyes, everything about her was perfectly calibrated. Not a crack. She placed the muffins down, looked me over. "You're glowing, Millie. Pregnancy suits you." I forced a smile, thanked her, sat at the kitchen table and stared at her hands as she fussed with the bouquet. She didn't bring up the party, didn't mention the lemonade. Nothing. I kept replaying the scene from the footage in my head. The moment she leaned in and handed me the drink. The way she watched me as I took it. I swallowed hard and said, "You remember handing me the lemonade, don't you?" She paused, blinked, then laughed softly. "You're being weird. Of course I remember. Why?" I stared at her. Her expression didn't shift, not even a flinch. It tasted off," I said. Her brow lifted, not in concern, but amusement. "Millie, come on. You've always had a sensitive palate." She reached over and touched my hand. "Maybe it was just lemon concentrate or something. Pregnancy does weird things to your taste buds." There it was. That tone. That condescending, silky voice that made you feel like you were the one losing grip. I pulled my hand back. "Maybe." She smiled wider. "Hormones make people paranoid. I get it." And just like that, the moment passed. I didn't push further. She'd already taken the power back. I let her. After she left, I sat on the edge of the couch, fists clenched. Why didn't I say more? Why did I let her do it again? Make me doubt myself. I grabbed my journal and started writing. Anything to get it out. I knew she was lying. I saw the damn video. And still, I froze. I flashed back to a memory I'd buried deep. Me, 16, confronting Mom about something Everly had said behind my back. Mom looked at me like I was being dramatic. "Don't start fights you can't finish, Millie," she said. "Your sister loves you. Don't ruin that." And so I stopped speaking up. It wasn't about peace. It was about survival. If you questioned them, you became the problem. Family is supposed to protect you, not poison you. I read that line somewhere years ago. It came back to me now, sharper than ever. That evening, after pacing the kitchen floor for what felt like hours, I called Lila. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, you okay?" "No, I need to tell you something." I laid it all out. The party, the lemonade, the camera, the footage. I didn't hold back. When I finished, she was quiet for a second. Then she said, "Jesus, Millie, that's insane. But it's real." "I believe you," she said. "You know I do. And if she's done this once?" "She might have done it before," I finished. "You're not losing your mind. You're finally seeing them for who they are." Her words landed like an anchor. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was awake. I hung up and walked back to the laptop, created backups of the video, uploaded them to the cloud, saved copies on 2 separate USB drives, took screenshots, cross-referenced texts. Then I started reading stories of women who were disbelieved until they proved the truth. Stories of sisters, mothers, friends, smiling, helping, poisoning. And I started planning. I wouldn't confront Everly again, not until I controlled every angle, every voice, every platform. I picked up the bouquet Everly had left behind, its petals starting to droop. "Nice touch," I whispered, hiding behind flowers. I opened my phone and typed, "I need your help." Oh, we're setting the stage. I was going through the stack of gift boxes, baby blankets, onesies, soft toys, when something inside one of them caught my eye. A small wooden music box, cracked and missing a few teeth on its hinge. It lay there, silent, dust gathering at its edges. My throat tightened. I recognized it immediately. From my childhood bedroom, I hadn't seen it in years. My fingers brushed the lid, and I froze. A memory sliced through me. Everly slamming that same box shut while I cried, then telling Mom I'd broken it. My tears, my voice denied, watching her lie so cleanly, everyone believing her. That silent betrayal echoed now, years later. I stared at the music box as though it might speak for me, and I wondered how many other moments had been stolen from me. How many times my truth was erased. I sank to the floor, hands cradling that box, and let the sadness ache. The room felt narrower than ever, as though walls were closing in. She had been doing this all along, not in grand acts, but in the soft erasures, lost awards, missing pets, dismissals that slipped by unnoticed. And now, faced with this relic, I realized the cruelty wasn't sudden. It was practiced. It was a habit. I closed my eyes and saw it all. Everly coaxing me to show her the prize from the science fair, the project gone missing, my mother telling me Everly never would do wrong. The memory unraveled, it all fit. A voice in me whispered, "The brain protects the heart, sometimes too well." Because I had forgotten so much, forgotten what it felt like to trust my own eyes. That night, I remembered a therapy session I attended 2 years ago when my heart felt fractured. My therapist asked me, "Who benefits when you stay small?" At the time, I shrugged. I didn't see it. Now I saw it clearly. Everly. All these years, her power grew as I shrank. The question landed hard. I was conditioned to doubt myself. I turned on the faucet, letting water run into the tub, and slid beneath the surface. Tears came, silent, not for what was lost entirely, but for who I thought I was. I grieved the sister I believed in, the one who never existed. "I stopped lying to myself," I whispered to the fogged mirror above me. Everly didn't change. I just finally saw enough. I grabbed my journal and scrawled the line, "Some people ruin your birthday. Some ruin your memory of every birthday." Each word stung, but with it came clarity. Helplessness began to yield. Later, I texted Everly, "Remember the music box?" Minutes passed. She replied, "LOL, that thing. You're joking, right?" I stared at her response, bitter resolve rising. She didn't remember, or she chose not to. Either way, she invalidated me. By night, I met Lila at a quiet cafe, coffee steaming between us. I spoke in soft urgency. "I've lived half my life second-guessing myself." She listened, gentle and steady. "When the truth finally hurts more than the lie," she said, "you know you're healing." The words felt like permission to rise. She urged me to map out everything: dates, faces, lies, small acts of betrayal. We sat there, two souls stitching their own maps of truth. I felt a weight begin to lift. Back home, I opened my laptop and created a folder named Truth, finally. Inside, I dropped video files, screenshots, memory notes, lay the foundation for everything to come. For the day, people couldn't pretend she was blameless. I stared at the screen. In that silence, I felt the game shift. I wasn't the pawn anymore. The late afternoon light filtered through the blinds, casting long stripes across the living room floor. I felt every shift in that pale glow, each movement, every glass on the table, like a secret waiting to be exposed. I hadn't wanted to go downstairs, but Dash's voice drifted up. "How'd you like the lemonade?" His tone was casual, familiar, but I heard a sharpness beneath. I forced a calm laugh and told him it was fine. Inside, my heart tightened. I replayed who poured the drink, Everly stepping forward, her fingers brushing the rim. I scanned the room. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I asked for another glass. The moment she reached for the pitcher, I watched her hand, the tilt, the motion. She poured, slow enough to notice, careful. I took a sip, feigned a cough. Everly tilted her head. "Too much ice?" she offered, voice light as cotton. I held back the nausea. She moved near the counter, her back turned, and I glimpsed a small brown bottle she'd set there earlier. My pulse jumped, fear mixed with resolve. Everly drifted into conversation with my mother and Corv in the corner. I paused in the doorway, listening. "Did you see how she paused?" Corv murmured. Serafina answered something about headaches. Their voices cracked when I cleared my throat. The conspiracy shifted before my eyes. I realized everyone watched me, judged me, maybe helped execute the plan. Betrayal burned deeper than anger. I rushed back to the camera footage, paused on the toast timestamp. There, right between frames, I saw her lean forward, tip something into the glass, then stir. The act was hidden by foam, but the motion was unmistakable. I watched, stunned. Proof. Something that turned my suspicion into certainty. My hands shook. The world tipped. In that moment I whispered, "I knew it." The scream inside froze. I marched into the kitchen. "Why did you do it?" I said, voice sharp against the quiet. Everly spun, eyes wide. "What are you talking about?" she asked, innocent. Dash came running in, confusion on his face. He asked me to calm down, told me I must be mistaken. Serafina interjected, "We're not blowing this up over rumors." Corv watched me, eyes cold. Their unity solidified. They were better together than against her, but not better than truth. I stepped away, locking myself in my room. I recovered that broken music box again, tracing its edges, feeling its scars. I told myself, I won't wait for them to believe me. I began organizing video segments, archiving proof. I heard in my chest the resignation, silence, my old refuge, is over. With trembling fingers, I uploaded the tainted clip to my private cloud backup. I felt exposed, yet I pressed send. I agreed to the meeting because I needed to be heard. Everly's message said, "Let's have a calm, honest talk." And she framed it as being for my own good. I cleaned the living room, straightened pillows, waited. Everyone showed up except Lila. Serafina carried a bottle of wine as though sealing an agreement. Corv hovered. They all wore polite faces. I walked through the door hoping their kindness was real, but there's a moment when you know smiles can be weapons. Everly opened with sweetness. "I know you've been under a lot of stress lately, Millie." Her voice dipped. Serafina chimed in. "When hormones shift, memory can become fuzzy." Dash nodded, watching quietly. Their words wrapped around me like chains. I felt them shifting the blame, softly, skillfully. I tried to argue, but every attempt to explain was met with gentle dismissal. My voice faltered. The room blurred. They painted my fear as fantasy. The gaslighting was collective now, making me question my own senses. My pulse pounded, my vision narrowed, control slipping. I stood, raising my voice. "I have footage." It floated across the room, awkward and raw. Everly's arms tightened around nobody. "Footage? From what?" she asked, voice measured. Her eyes flickered at my laptop across the table. Corv's lips curved with satisfaction. "You've edited things before, haven't you?" she purred. Murmurs rushed in. "Not everything is what it seems. Let's not go nuclear over a misunderstanding." I felt their words like blows. I realized then they weren't protecting the family. They were protecting her version. The room spun. Anger and grief collided. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was breathe. I retreated to the bathroom, slamming the door behind me. I stared into the mirror. The reflection looked hollow, yet burning. I whispered, "If I say nothing, I disappear. Again." My knuckles were white. I replayed every time I stayed silent, every lie accepted. The weight of generations pressed on me. The silence they demanded wasn't peace. It was erasure. Under the door, I fingered my phone. I texted Lila. "It's happening again. I need to leave." Her reply came swift. "Don't let them rewrite it. You already lived it." My chest tightened. I wiped tears, squared my shoulders, and walked back. I didn't bring up the footage. I didn't beg for belief. Instead, I said, "I'm done explaining." I paused. All eyes on me. Silence is comfort for abusers, not for the truth. Then I turned, left the room. Silence snapped like glass behind me. Outside, I found the backyard swing behind the house. Moonlight touched the wood. I sat, shoulders slumped, heart pounding. The wind stirred wind chimes. I inhaled cold air. They had lost me. I was no longer theirs to quiet. I watched my phone light up. CloudLink, 42 views. Comments trickled in. 1. She's not crazy. I saw the same thing once. A small tremor of satisfaction warmed me. I wasn't alone. Lila and I sat in the dim den for nearly an hour. She helped me strategize what to say, when to reveal, how to hold my ground without giving them more ammunition. It felt like preparing for a trial. At one point, I paused, listening. From the living room came muffled voices, Everly and Serafina whispering sharply. My heart sank. The fortress I'd been building in my mind was now under siege. I slipped my phone into my pocket and lingered by the door, every breath measured. I knew they were aligning, forming a counterattack. I told myself, now I must guard my walls. When I stepped in, their posture shifted. I walked into the trap they set. Corv stood first. "You accused me of poisoning you last week." Her voice rang across the room. Serafina leaned forward. "We have receipts. You've been hiding things." I felt the walls close in. Dash sat silent, his eyes torn between disbelief and pressure. Corv's chest puffed, not with confidence, but with aggression. "You were seen editing video," she claimed. "Why hide things if there's nothing to hide?" I swallowed. My instinct screamed, defend, retreat, or laugh it off. The betrayal stung like wind. They stared. I tried to speak. My voice cracked. I remembered being called over-emotional in my teens. Their gaze weighed on me. I realized then they'd rehearsed this. I had stepped into their trap. Dash's face softened, but his lips stayed unmoving. Serafina averted her eyes. I was isolated in a room full of voices. I raised my hand and pulled out my phone. I tapped play on a short audio clip. Everly's voice, crystalline, saying, "Pour it." The room froze. Eyes darted. Corv smirked, but it flickered. Serafina said coolly, "That could be edited." I said, "Then let's compare originals." My calm steadied. Dash swiveled to face me, a conflict in his expression. Cracks began to show in Corv's facade. The meeting erupted, voices clashed, furniture shifted. The soft palette of their family persona shattered. Everly stormed out, slamming the front door. Serafina followed, tears in her eyes. Dash rose to chase, but I stayed, holding him back. The living room lay in ruin, glasses tipped, flowers crushed, silence thick. I stood in the center, chest clenched. I grabbed the glass I had spat into earlier, its rim sticky. That broken vessel belonged to me now. I turned, visuals sharp in my mind, the overturned chair, the coffee stain, the snapped tension. This is what it takes, I thought. Not silence, but confrontation. I retreated upstairs and shut the door. I sat on my bed, breath heavy. I reopened Truth. Finally, folder. I reviewed clips, notes, timestamps. My plan crystallized. I didn't need their apology. I needed my peace. I typed a message to Lila. Tonight we move forward. I pressed send. In the quiet, I whispered to myself, I'm not seeking justice from them. I'm claiming peace for me. Then my phone lit up. A new anonymous text previewed, Tonight, your footage goes viral. Are you ready? A drop of sweat slid down my temple. This wasn't just personal anymore. I stared at the screen. My finger trembled above post. Then I pressed it. The video began with the toast, then the slow tilt of Everly's hand. The drop in the liquid. My gut clenched. I watched views, 0, 100, 1,000, climb. Names rolled past, cousins I barely spoke to, neighbors whose faces I recognized, distant family I hadn't seen in years. And then, comments. I swallowed. This is no longer just between us. The weight of exposure pressed on my chest. Inside the family room, someone had forwarded the video to Everly's tablet. She didn't block it. The screen flickered on. Gasps erupted. My mother recoiled. Corv's eyes narrowed. Serafina cried, "This must be edited!" Dash stood beside me, steady, saying, "You think she'd let me marry into poison?" Corv recoiled, her practiced calm cracked into anger. The room crackled like storm clouds breaking. Then Corv's husband appeared at the doorway, jaw clenched, pointing at the screen. "What is this?" he demanded. He marched forward, voice heavy. "Is this what you've been hiding?" He confronted Corv in front of all of us. She stuttered, fumbling. "It's not what it looks like, But the video blared louder. He cut her off. "I never want to look at you the same way again." Serafina tried to soothe him, to shield Corv, but he shook her off. Dash caught me, pulled me close. Corv dissolved. Tears, pleas, regret flaring. For the first time, she was unmasked. My phone buzzed persistently. Hundreds of new notifications. Someone had taken a screenshot and shared it with a local news outlet. I read the headline alert. Pregnancy poisoning scandal rocks neighborhood. My name was now public. My story spilled into reality. I felt dizzy, alive. Now I'm not just a voice in the dark, I thought. People were watching. Corv pleaded. I did it for reputation, for legacy. She looked to Serafina. Some in the room shifted uncomfortably, but no one defended her fully. Dash faced his mother. Reputation doesn't excuse betrayal. The room held its breath. Corv's facade crumbled as silence claimed her. I slipped upstairs, exhaustion heavy in my bones. I went to the shelf and lifted the old music box, the one she smashed years ago, now intact again because I'd repaired it. I held it close. "You were never alone. You were waiting," I whispered to the empty room. Outside, the clamor of alerts pulsed through the house. The ripple had begun. On screen, a comment appeared. "My sister went through the same. Thank you for telling this." A surge of purpose rose in me. This wasn't just justice for me. It was validation for many. I watched the metrics rise, thousands of views, shares, snippets floating across social media. My screen glowed in the dark room. Messages flooded in. "I believe you. Thank you. You're brave." The noise was deafening. My name now carried power. Dash wrapped his arms around me. "They can't deny you now," he whispered. I nodded, heart pounding, relief and fear tangled tight. Serafina called, demanding a meeting. I declined. This time I wouldn't hide. The spotlight was on. Vulnerability and victory warred inside me. That night, I typed a post like I was holding a manifesto. I laid bare Everly's pattern, the subtle sabotage, the lies, the manipulation. I included the video clip, my memory logs, text threads from years past. I quoted, "Truth doesn't beg, it stands." I waited until midnight, reread every sentence, checked every date stamp. Then I hit publish. Instantly, reactions exploded. Shares, comments, news outlets pounced. My story spilled across feeds. The world leaned in. By morning, the Mercer firm was unraveling. A longtime business partner withdrew support. Clients called with questions. Shareholders hammered for answers. Serafina and Corv scrambled to issue PR statements. Dash urged legal counsel. I told him, "We won't spin this, we expose it." It was retribution masquerading as integrity. The firm, once a bastion of status, cracked under the weight of truth. Everly fired back with a press release claiming false narrative and misinterpretation. She wrote she never intended harm, that the viral video was manipulated. I answered with original file links, side-by-side clips. Silence killed her arguments. Her supporters fell quiet. Even those neutral shifted. The family media affiliate retracted earlier posts defending her. The public watched her unravel. Late, Corv called and asked to see me in person. I agreed, but held space. She arrived, voice low. "You've ruined everything." I held her gaze. "I reclaimed my voice," I said. "You lost your shadow over me." She threatened regret. I replied, "No, I'll never regret telling the truth." Her eyes flickered. Sadness and pride mingled. A finality settled in me. Exhausted, I retreated. I touched the music box on my shelf, my childhood relic restored. I whispered, "You were never alone. You were waiting." Outside, notification chimes echoed through the house. The ripple had become a wave. At dawn, my phone screen lit with news. Victim of alleged poisoning wins restraining order against sister-in-law. A new legal chapter began. There's a silence that comes after chaos. It's not empty. It's heavy, like the stillness right after a storm when the air still smells of broken branches and soaked dirt. That's what life felt like in the months after the hearing. The restraining order was final. The video had run its course through every screen in our town. But I wasn't untouched. I woke up lighter, yes, but not whole. That takes time. The scars are quiet now. They hum in the background. Neighbors waved more. Strangers wrote me letters. Some relatives stayed away, pretending nothing happened. That was fine. Grandma Zinnia once said, "Closure isn't peace, it's a decision." I understood that now. Dash and I talked more seriously about starting a family. We weren't rushing, just dreaming with cautious hope. Something about planting new roots made sense. Then, one morning, a padded envelope arrived. No return name, just the law firm's address. I opened it and pulled out a letter, thick paper folded carefully. My grandmother's handwriting stared back at me. Zinnia. The lawyer must have found it sorting through her estate. The ink was faded, but the words were sharp. She wrote about suspicion, how she'd long felt there was something rotten in the Mercer bloodline. She hadn't named names, but said plainly, Serafina was never favored. She was feared. My breath caught. Grandma had seen it all and couldn't fix it, but she left the map. "Millie," she wrote, "walk into the light, even if they choose shadows." My fingers trembled. That night, I drove to her grave, sat cross-legged on the grass, and read her letter out loud. The wind was soft, the ground was dry. And for the first time, I didn't cry for what was lost. I cried for what was finally understood. The court made Serafina's restraining order permanent. She wouldn't be allowed at any future family events. Not that there'd be many left. Corv packed up, moved 2 states away. No farewell, just silence. The Mercer business, once polished and loud, shut its doors after multiple lawsuits. The signs came down, and I stood in the quiet, looking back. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt real, like someone who had climbed out of something ugly and was still brushing off the dirt. Spring came early. With it came the birth of something I didn't expect, a mission. We launched the Zinnia Initiative, a nonprofit for women like me, those who weren't hit but still broken. Gaslighting, emotional control, manipulation masked as care. The first town hall meeting drew 30 people. Some shared, some just listened. A woman my mother's age cried through her story. When I finished, I said, "We don't just survive, we grow, roots down, then up." Dash had designed the website, handled logistics. Behind the community center, we planted a garden of zinnias. A memorial, yes, but also a promise. A year later, I was 7 months pregnant. Dash painted the nursery soft green. I sat in the rocking chair, one hand on my belly, the other flipping through my journal. A little girl from the neighborhood knocked on the door, holding a Tupperware of homemade cupcakes. "You're the strongest lady I know," she said. I laughed, gently. "Strength doesn't mean you're never afraid. It just means you don't let fear decide for you." She beamed. I pinned her note on my board, right next to the photo of Zinnia, a printout of the court ruling, and a picture from our first community talk. I pressed a dried zinnia petal into my journal and closed it softly. Later that evening, I sat in bed, holding the ultrasound photo. I looked at the outline of my daughter's tiny face and whispered, "You'll grow up knowing the truth, not the silence." Then I turned off the light and walked forward.